Welcome to the Chronicles of a Christian Drama Queen podcast. I am your host and the original Christian Drama Queen, Lisa Ann Schaefer, and I am glad you are here. I can promise you that I know what it's like to think like a lover of Jesus, but live like a hot mess every day. So if you can relate, you're in the right place. Everything from the craziness of homeschooling my kids to overcoming deep wounds of abandonment and abuse. I want you to stay with me, sister. I have walked down those paths, and I've got decades of healing and hope that God's called me to share. Here we go. Here we go indeed. Thanks for joining me today, guys. So I have something I want to share with you. I have decided to title this particular podcast The Christian Drama Queen Stepped Out in Faith and God Gave Her $2 extra. Just in case you'll figure it out here in just a minute. First of all, look at this beautiful on the air sign that my son got for me, my oldest. Does he know me or what? Christian Drama Queen's got to have an on-air radio sign. I love it. That's for those of you that are watching the video. For those of you who are not watching the video, you got to go find me on the YouTube channel, right? Christian Drama Queen on the YouTube channel. You can always find me on my website as well, which is christiandramaqueen.com. And here's the podcast. Make sure you're sharing this, guys. That's the only way we're going to get the word out that God heals really broken, crazy drama queen kinds of people like you and me. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that verse. You know the one I'm talking about. The one in Hebrews chapter 11, that very first verse, right? That says, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things we have not seen. So have you ever looked at that word conviction? I'm not talking about conviction, that word that means somebody's been charged with a crime and they've been found guilty. Not that kind of conviction. This particular word, conviction, means firmly believing. Now, don't be lying. Don't be lying. Don't be acting like your faith is so super strong that you are always firmly believing. I think you and I both know that maybe that is not the case. Right? And it's okay. But I'm going to tell you a story about a way that I found out I can have confidence in my firm belief in God. I can have confidence in that. So when I was about 26, 27 years old, we adopted our first child. Now, this was after several years of going through infertility treatments and that sort of thing. I've got a whole nother book planned out for that nonsense, let me tell you. But God showed up, so it's worth writing down, right? He's in our stories, and I want to share that with you sometime. But here's what I want to tell you about right now. After we adopted our first child, he was precious, you guys, just precious. 5 pounds and 3 ounces of curly dark hair and big eyes. And he was just gorgeous. And we fell madly in love with not just him, but with being parents. And I was fortunate enough to have a boss that was very understanding. I was working for a major bank at the time as a senior customer service representative. And she allowed me to go from full-time to part-time. And that was glorious because after the first 3 months of maternity leave, I went back to work. And I went back to work part-time. So I would go half a day, noon to 5. And every day I would take my sweet little bundle of joy to the daycare center. Or not the daycare center, but to a daycare, right? It was a friend of mine, but she was watching my kids and other kids. And anyway, it just seemed really difficult. It was very difficult every day to take that sweet little bundle that I had prayed and asked God to bring me all those years. It was very difficult to take him to daycare and drop him off so I could go to work. So after many, many, many prayers, my husband and I decided that we would act in faith and I would give notice at work. Now, this is what that means. That means that my little part-time $1,104 a month income was going to stop. And we were going to be over $1,000 short, according to the paperwork, if I decided to come home and take care of that baby. But we sat down and we did the math and we added up things like how often I ate out during the week while I was at work, how much I was paying for parking, having to have two vehicles so that he could go one way to work and I could go the other way to work. We just did the math and we thought, well, we're $1,000 short, but God can work it out. So I went in on a Friday, and because I was a senior customer service representative, I gave my boss a full 30 days notice to replace me. It meant I was going to probably have to train someone, and that was going to be after they spent some time finding someone. So we went in and gave notice on a Friday. And the following Sunday at church, we let everybody know at church that we had done this. You would not believe the gasps coming from the sanctuary, because even though we all talk a great game about having faith, we don't like to act on it. We don't want to put God in that situation. We don't want to put God in the situation where he's going to have to prove to us that our faith has feet on it. So we got a lot of conversation about, did you have a backup plan of any kind? Do you have savings set aside? What happens if it doesn't work? We just didn't listen. We decided we'd already given notice. That was the end of it. And believe me, my boss would have taken me back in a heartbeat. But that was Sunday morning. And then Monday morning came. Now, I didn't go to work until noon, and my husband went to work early in the morning. He was working for an aircraft industry. And so he went to work. And about 7:30 in the morning, I was just barely waking up with the baby, I get this phone call. Now, we didn't have cell phones back then, and we didn't have texting back then. It was a landline phone call. So the phone rang, literally rang. It didn't play Pharrell Williams Happy for a ringtone like my phone does now. It was a landline ring, and it was blaring at 7:30 in the morning. So I answered the phone, thought surely something was terribly wrong because that's too early for anybody to call me unless it's bad news. And it was my husband. He was literally almost in tears. I say almost because he may not want me telling you he was in tears. But there was this crackle in his voice, in his tone. He was stunned, and I could tell something was going on. And I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "You're not going to believe this. You are not going to believe this." I said, "Come on, tell me what's going on. Are you hurt? Are you injured? Is there a problem? Did mom call you?" His mom, "Did somebody call? Is something wrong? What's wrong?" And before I could panic for too long, he said, "Ann approached me at work this morning as soon as I got here and offered me her little part-time cleaning business." Now, that little part-time cleaning business had been her little side gig. She'd been doing that on the weekends and making a little money on the side. Guess how much money that little side business was making for her? Go ahead. Go ahead and guess. I needed $1,104 to make ends meet. And her little business made $1,106. God gave me $2 extra because of our act of faith, because we stepped out and said, we're just going to trust him. Now, I'm not telling you guys what to do. I'm not. This is my story. This was my faith journey, and this was my scary time. But that's what he did. Within minutes, practically, of our act of faith on a Friday, he was showing us how he was going to answer that prayer on a Monday. And I'm in a position right now where I've had to make a decision about something. I've had to take a step of faith. It's money. It's about money. Half the time our steps of faith include money. And I had to make a decision, and I just did it. And I'm not doubting at all that he's going to come through. I'm not doubting. That doesn't mean the numbers don't look wrong. What's in front of me doesn't look right. But faith, the real deal, cannot be physically seen. You will not see an answer to your step or your act of faith until after you take it. Otherwise, it's not really faith at all now, is it? So after I got off the phone with my husband that day, I just remember being so incredibly grateful. You know that verse in Jude that talks about us and our holy faith and praying in the Spirit? And I realized that was the first time I was speechless before God. My gratitude was just overwhelming. I didn't know how to say, thank you, Lord. I didn't know how to say it. The words were not there. The emotion I felt was way beyond just being grateful and being happy. It was beyond that. He had made a way for me to be home with my baby after all those years of praying that we'd have one. It was quite the happy ending for us at that time. So what about you, sister? I might be talking to a few brothers, but I bet I'm talking to a lot of sisters. Is God asking you to take a step of faith of any kind? Is he asking you to figure out things, or is he just asking you to trust him? Maybe it's a little both. I know for me, that one event, that one time has taught me, and believe me, that was 32 years ago. That business, that little $1,104 a month income created from that business has sometimes been over 6 figures a year and has sometimes been just enough for us to make ends meet. Sometimes it's more money than my husband makes when he's working at his full-time job, and sometimes it's not. But God has used that little cleaning business, the humbleness, maybe humility. I don't say humility. Well, maybe it is humility. The fact that we're willing to clean toilets in order to make ends meet. And the fact that we said to the Lord, I'm coming home to take care of that baby boy that you gave us for whatever reason. And believe me, my son's got his own story, and it's a beaut. It's a beaut. Listen, you can trust him. You can trust him. Whether it's for $1,100 and he gives you an extra $2 or something else, you can trust him. Now, I'm not a licensed psychologist. I'm not a licensed medical doctor. I'm not a licensed anything. I'm just a crazy old Christian drama queen with a lot of baggage and a lot of stories to tell. But I want you to understand who this God really is. This God that saved you and loves you and wants to nurture and cherish you, wants to show you that you are deserving of a loving Father, wants to heal you and break those bonds of bitterness. You can trust him. I promise you can trust him. Don't you think? That's going to pretty much do it for me today, guys. Thanks for joining me today for the Chronicles of a Christian Drama Queen. Don't forget to find me. Oh man, I'm all over the place, you guys. Check out YouTube channel at Christian Drama Queen, and also find my website at christiandramaqueen.com, where you'll get access to my blog and transcripts from all my podcasts. Get to know me a little bit better, even make arrangements to either purchase my Bible study called Discarded, which you can also find on Amazon. Maybe you can just connect with me and we can, show up and do coffee. Who knows? Thanks for joining me today, guys. And I love you.